Girls think, and boys just think that they have to act a certain way, be a certain way, look a certain way to fit in. They have to be able to wear this clothes, wear this, and look like this, or they're not the same as other people. And I don't at all agree with that, because I think everyone's their own person. And like, it doesn't matter if you're a little bit bigger, a little bit skinnier, like you're still the same person. That doesn't mean if you're just a little stronger, you're just built that way.
Hey there, high performers. This is Dr. Josh Funk. In this podcast, I will be interviewing people from the sports and business world who have experienced hardship and come out on top. Through their challenges, strategies, and mindset, I hope that it will give you the tools you need to perform for life.
Hey everybody, this is Dr. Funk. I am very excited to bring to you a special guest, our youngest guest on the podcast so far, but somebody who is a high achiever in every sense of the word, Saylor Poffenbarger. Welcome, Saylor.
Thank you for having me.
So some of you may have heard that name, and some of you might automatically know who it is that we have on the podcast today. But for those of you that don't, she is a local product of Middletown High School. She is committed to play basketball at the University of Connecticut. She also played on Team USA last summer, and overall has just grown up in a very, very dynamic household. She had as many siblings as I did, which I did not know until kind of going through this process. But Saylor, talk to us a little bit about what it was like growing up in your household. Obviously, parents who had achieved levels of success on their own, but overall, just the different dynamics among you and your siblings.
It was a definitely very competitive household. Nothing was ever given to us. Like, it was kind of just everything I did either with my siblings. I had 4 brothers, so I grew up kind of always like fighting against my older brother who's 18, going to play football at Old Dominion, and he's like just never let me win at anything. If it was going to get front seat, or if it was in basketball, or if it was a competition on like who could catch as many balls in a row, like it was never easy. So I think that really helped me growing up in that kind of family, like just not being given anything. And my parents have both, like my mom played very high level of basketball as well, and I think it kind of helped her in the way that she taught me, because she kind of taught me on what she wished she would have done better. And so I think that helped me a lot just with growing up in life, and just the basketball side of things, like the recruiting process, on what I need to work on better, like what I need to have to play at the collegiate level. And I think that was awesome. My dad is he wasn't necessarily as big into sports, but he was he grew up in the same household as us. He had 2 brothers and they were super competitive. So I like coming from that household just because I think it just kind of makes everything a lot more fun. I don't know. It just makes everything, yes, we all love each other, but it also comes from a lot of like wild up people, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's probably a lot of tough love. Nobody really ever lets you settle, right? You don't really get a chance to breathe. I imagine you have a relationship probably very similar to my sister and me. My sister, she was a freshman when I was a senior. She played lacrosse at Ohio State, so we both ended up going to the same school, but it was constant back and forth. She would want to go outside to play lacrosse or whatever sport. She would drag me along. I would do the same thing. So I almost had this built-in person that allowed me to better myself. And the competition obviously naturally brought certain things out of me. But I also think that somebody that I just had to support me, somebody that I had kind of going through a lot of the same stuff that I was going through, allowed me to ideally be my best version of myself. And I think the challenging thing with young people a lot of times, and something I think you've done very, very good job of, is just staying focused. You've had a lot of eyes on you. There's been a lot of attention on you, especially throughout your high school career, most likely probably the moment that you started high school. How have you been able to stay focused and stay grounded and really continue to do a lot of the same things you've just done for years?
I think the best thing is I'm that fangirl. I'm that girl that looks up to all of the girls that are now seniors in college. And I was a little 4-year-old on watching TV, watching Connecticut play basketball, and just wondering what it took to get to that level and always wanting that. And I think that kind of helps me, because I grew up in right now, even sometimes right now when I'm doing stuff, I'm kind of oh my gosh, is this real? It takes me a long time to kind of fully understand what I'm doing. When I committed, it took a while for me to be oh my, I'm actually going to play for my dream school. And so I think that that's really helped, just because it's just kind of those are my dreams as a little kid. And now it's kind of surreal that it's happening. So it's sometimes I don't even feel like it's real. So I just kind of keep working. And I think that's helped a lot, is me being able to like look up to those older girls, like they're looking up to me now, and just knowing how they worked so hard. And I know now I just have to kind of like keep my head down and keep working. I can have fun, but just like for the most part, like stay focused.
Yeah. And I think something that kind of goes along with that, you know, you talk about working hard, you talk about staying focused. I think of the word sacrifice. I mean, I imagine that you've had to put yourself in a situation where your routine, quite honestly, just looks different than a lot of your peers, not making anything that you're doing better than anybody else. But I think we all have our different gifts. We all have our different potential that we're working towards. What are some of the challenges with sacrifices that you've made? I can imagine, at least off the top of my head, that you've got like stuff you're doing from a workout standpoint. You've got somebody who's working on your actual just basketball game, basketball IQ. How do you juggle all those different things? And have there been challenges with sacrifice when it comes to, especially probably your personal life?
It's definitely been tricky because, I mean, I am a social butterfly. I really enjoy to go out and be with my school friends and be with my friends and hang out with everyone and like just do what a 16, 17-year-old kid does. And I think that that's kind of been hard because I have to realize that I'm not just a regular 17-year-old kid. Even though as much as I am, I do have to say no sometimes, and it is hard. But I think I have really realized my high school career that you kind of just have to work smarter, not harder. Like if I need to do 2 workouts today, I'll do strength, but I'm not going to try to accomplish everything in one day. Like I just kind of have to pick and choose and like set a pretty routine schedule. And that's helped me a lot, is knowing like if I have a schedule that's like pretty set in stone, it helps me in knowing like, okay, if I do this, I can go be a kid. And I think that that's helped a lot. And I mean, my trainers all along the way have been really helpful because they are the same way as me. They don't want to sit you here for 3 hours and train you for basketball because they know that you're not going to be focused for 3 hours. They know that if we focus for an hour and a half, it'll be the best hour and a half. And then we'll come back the next day and work on whatever we want to do. And I think that's been helpful, is me knowing that like, it doesn't always have to be the longest workout. It just kind of has to be the most efficient workout. And I think that it's hard, yes. But I think just knowing like my accomplishments have also helped me stay focused, and like knowing that saying no is not the end of the world. Like saying no is getting me a lot of opportunities in life and a lot of things that I dreamt of as a kid.
And I think that's challenging for a lot of people. The fact that you recognize, especially like the work smarter, not harder thing. I think too often people are going to think more is more better.
Right.
And I think, you know, the analogy that I'll always use with people, and I stole it from one of our fellow PTs at Rehab to Perform, but is emptying the tank. And we don't necessarily need to empty it fully every single day. Sometimes it's emptying it enough and allowing you to get back to that baseline, or what we're always trying to do, which is create a bigger cup, right? So you're doing things to work on your craft. You're working on your basketball skill. You're working on shooting. I'm sure there's stuff involving working on your IQ that you're doing. You're working on your physical self to improve your athleticism. But then the other thing that I thought was amazing just now is that you know what it's like to say no. You know that sometimes saying no is okay. You know that there's a, kind of a greater thing that you're working towards. And if I can think about different people that I've coached or interacted with over my time, either being a coach or a mentor to people, it's sometimes people achieve success, they experience certain accomplishments, they get a certain amount of focus on them, they get a certain star rating, and they start to deviate from some of the things that got them to that position. Or, to be honest, a lot of times in high school, sometimes we can get away with very natural ability. Hearing things about you through the pipeline, through the community, your work ethic is something that has just remained a constant. Who do you credit that to? Is that just your competitive nature? Is it things that you think, you mentioned Reese, that has been a part of your relationship? What has allowed you to continue to keep that competitive drive and to keep your consistency over the course of, your significant accomplishments over the past year?
I credit my family, but I think I credit a lot of it to my brother, Reese. He, his recruiting path was not easy. And I think that me watching him go through that, it wasn't the same for me. And I think that was very humbling to me because I saw how hard he worked and behind the scenes that no one sees. And it just kind of makes you realize there's people out here that are working a lot harder than you are, but you just happen to have that, like you said, that this ability, the natural strength and ability to athleticism to perform at a level in high school. And I think that Reese, just his consistency, his drive, him constantly researching what he can do better. He always is helping me on what maybe I can do better, because we are polar opposites when it comes to working out. He is fine with sitting in a gym all day lifting the entire day, and I'm the kind of person okay, I can do 3 hours of work and I'm done. I just want to go hang out with my friends and like I said, just like kind of just be efficient when I do it. And Reese is content with staying in the gym all day. So he's really helped me just like with like, just showing me his perspective of things and just showing me that there's people out there that do that on all day. And is it working? I don't know. Like everyone has their own way to work out, but he definitely is I credit him like almost fully to how I've stayed consistent, because I just see how hard he works and how hard it was for him. But it always comes out positive. Like he's going to Old Dominion on a full scholarship to play what he wants to play because he didn't ever stop working.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I mean, I just have known a little bit of the superficial side of his recruiting process. Quarterbacking seems to be something that I think still gets missed recruiting-wise, especially when you look at some of the different, we'll just go ahead and bring it up, but probably questions about height, questions about speed, things that, you look at some of these quarterbacks in the NFL, well, he's probably around Drew Brees' height. Drew Brees did fine. Russell Wilson's not very tall. Kyler Murray's not very tall. So there's all these, Baker Mayfield's not very tall. Right. So it's just always interesting to see how sometimes the recruiting process wants to put people in a box. Mm-hmm. And it's nice to see people also go to the next level and go to a Division I school, potentially, change the way that people view them, right? Go there, kill it, potentially end up a starter, and maybe even making it to the next level after that. So I think that's pretty special. And I do definitely wish him the best on that journey. You mentioned being well-rounded. I think that's something that people might find hard to believe, just given what you've accomplished. When it comes to things like personal, I know you're big into your faith, you're obviously big into your family, and then there's that basketball component. How do you kind of keep yourself in balance, and how do you make sure that you're making time for all of these different aspects of your life?
About the well-rounded part, my parents are big about that. Like you said, I'm really strong into my faith, and I think that has kind of just helped me, because like there's a lot of people that have accomplished a lot of things. Like what I've done isn't just like completely abnormal. Like it's happened before. So it's just kind of one of those things where like you need to keep going, keep proving yourself. Like what you've done right now isn't necessarily like the best you can do. So I've just kind of tried to tell myself, like, just like stay who you are, like stay true to your colors. Don't change who you are. Like my parents have raised me a certain way, and that's the only way I know to be. So like that has helped. Just like my mom's constantly saying like, Saylor, like if I ever get a little out of control, like they are the first people to tell me that. And I'm glad, because I don't want to be the person that's like successful and cocky. Like I quite honestly, this is like unbelievable to me. So it's still like one of those things where I'm just like, is it real? So I think that that's a big thing that my family's big about, is just keeping you humble, like staying grounded, just making sure that you stay who you are. Like you're not a celebrity, you're Saylor. You live in Middletown, like you're with the family. And I think that that's helped a lot.
And they've made it more than just basketball, because I think a lot of times people will see the success and it's just basketball, but they make sure that you're having time for all of these different aspects of your life. They feel like people are well-rounded and probably just a happier person, because you can imagine if we're putting all of our eggs into one basket and something gets taken away from us, and we don't have these 3, 4, I didn't bring up academics earlier, but obviously that's something that you're very invested in as well. But seeing people who will put all of their eggs into one basket reminds me a little bit of what will happen to you at some point, where basketball will end for you. But ideally, when basketball ends for you, in terms of your competitive playing days, you'll have all of those other aspects of your life still going in unison, and you'll find a way to just kind of jump off into a new passion that ideally is something that you're, working on. Life is going to end after basketball. And I think a lot of times people forget that. And it's also interesting that you brought up the fact that, like, in high school, sometimes people get a little bit kind of fat and happy on their success, and unfortunately will run into a situation where they don't prepare themselves for continual success. So they succeed in high school. They are potentially in a situation where they're going to peak in high school, and then they get to college and it's like, oh, well, I get to this college and, oh, well, they just, the coaches didn't like me or whatever. It automatically becomes this external focus, when in all reality, they should have been focusing on themselves, continually working, preparing themselves for the next level. Because let's be honest, it was your dream not to commit to UConn. It was your dream to play at UConn, right? It's your dream to be a starter at UConn. It's your dream to be all-conference at UConn or an all-American at UConn or win a national championship, right? So I think the fact that you have that perspective is so special. We've talked a lot about positive dynamics and things that have been very, I think, beneficial to your growth. Also knowing you a little bit more, there's something that's been bigger and it's been a little bit more challenging for you to deal with, just given your connectivity to this person and your age. You unfortunately lost one of your siblings when you were younger. What effect did that have on you? And what type of things do you think you've learned from that process?
It was definitely difficult, but I think like it was one of those things where like I was so young, I was 7 years old, and it was just kind of like, obviously I was super upset, but I didn't understand it when I was 7. Like all I understood was he got in an accident and left. And so then when I've gotten older and I've gotten more successful, I think I've used basketball a lot to kind of as my way to just like relax and kind of leave everything at the table and just go play basketball. And I think it's also had me deal with it a little bit more. I kind of put it to the side and just like kind of was always like, oh, I just didn't understand it. And recently within like the past like 3 years, I've like kind of dedicated all my success to him, and I play with like an all for you. And I think that's like really helped me in a positive way, like for something that was so negative that happened, because it makes me realize that and feel like he's with me. I mean, he's with me all the time. So it makes me kind of do what I do because he wasn't given the chance to do it. And I mean, has it been hard? Yes. Some days are really difficult, but I think me actually like using my faith, my trust in God, and like actually like knowing it, like reliving what happened has really helped me grow, just because it's like making me realize that like there's nothing I can do but change for myself and be positive about it. Like it's already happened. So that's helped me a lot, but it's definitely hard. We were 2 years apart. So he was like, we were the middle kids and we were like best friends, but it's also given me light, like being able to do what I do for him, like kind of like letting him have his own story through me.
That's awesome. I mean, the fact that you've been able to kind of handle something that can be very challenging for a lot of people, reframe what it means to you, reframe what it's doing for you. I think a lot of people will get in a mindset of, well, this happened to me. Instead, you've created a new narrative. Well, this happened for me, and this is what I'm going to do as a result. And if anything, it almost sounded like it kind of keeps you in check, right? Because maybe you have a day where you're feeling sorry for yourself, or maybe you're a day where you're a little bit tired, but then you also recognize the fact that you still are fortunate where you're able to be here. You're able to improve on yourself. And if you're here, you might as well put everything that you can into what you're doing. So I think that's pretty special. I mean, just the way that you've been able to handle that and ideally move past it, keep it with you, but continue to allow it to, it almost like lights your fire, it keeps you moving. Another thing that I wanted to ask you about, and I know that's something I think that's coming up more and more, the more I'm talking to, whether or not it's women in fitness or women in sports, stories and narratives surrounding females in athletics are drastically changing. I think there's still some challenging things where there's a lot of focus on aesthetics of females and not necessarily the performance, but there are certain things out there where like strong is the new skinny. Or I had somebody on the podcast recently and she talked about how she wanted her daughters and herself to think about her body as more of a, an engine for performance, right? It was what my body can do physically, not what it looks like. Have you had any challenges, or at least can you speak to some of those things that you see going on around you being a woman in sports?
I mean, I definitely feel like it's a lot to do with sports. Women, I mean, in general, just in the sports side of things, they're just constantly fighting for like equality. And like, I mean, everyone sees it differently. I see it as like one of those things where like, I'm not the kind of person who's going to sit here and say why we should have it. I'm the kind of person who's going to go out and do something on improve why we should do it. But at the same time, I think it's just in general, the youth and like kids nowadays have just lost their innocence incredibly too early. And I think that has a ton to do with kids' confidence. Not only girls and boys. Girls and boys just think that they have to act a certain way, be a certain way, look a certain way to fit in. They have to be able to wear this clothes, wear this, and look like this, or they're not the same as other people. And I don't at all agree with that, because I think everyone's their own person. And like, it doesn't matter if you're a little bit bigger, a little bit skinnier, like you're still the same person. That doesn't mean if you're just a little stronger, you're just built that way. Like some people are just born thick. And I think that that's not a negative thing, and people shouldn't see it as a negative thing. They should just take in I'm just not the kind of person that would like see myself like that. Not in my confident, but just the way I'm brought up. It's just kind of like, appreciate who you are. You're not going to change it. And I've just grown to feel that way. And that's how I feel about everyone. And so it just kind of hurts my heart to see like all these kids nowadays just like super self-conscious and like trying to change who they are for no reason. Like we live in a world today where you can be whoever you want to be. You don't have to be what people are saying. And I think that that's big, just because like these kids are growing up on social media and they're reading stuff and they're looking at other people's lives and they're wanting that and wishing that, but that's not what's in store for them. And I think that kids don't realize that. They like right now, especially, and this is a really hard time where we're staying in our houses all day, and these kids have no idea why, and they aren't being able to get a childhood like we were given. And I think so then they're kind of like using this time to get on social media and like going on TikTok and Instagram, and they're just looking at other people's lives, and then it's not good, because it's not like they have anything to go do right now. They're just sitting in their houses. And so I think that's definitely definitely a big part is just like the innocence is lost so early.
And there's comparison, right? You brought that up a couple times, but like, especially like, we're looking at other people. Oh my gosh, look at everything that they have, or look at everything that they've done. Or what I was referring to a little bit with females, oh, look at how that person looks. Right. Look at how I don't look. So it puts people in this constant comparison. I think it's just so unhealthy, especially when you just let's talk about social media with women, and potentially questionable photo of a female could potentially get more likes and more attention than an accomplishment for a female. Right. And I think that's just such a double standard too. So I think that, there's definitely challenges there. Hopefully it's things we continue to work through. I do think it'll take quite some time. And unfortunately, there's still going to be a certain percentage of the population that deals with that. But I appreciate everything that you had to say in terms of how you view it and your just perspective that you have there. One of the things that I think is unique, and I do think it puts you in a situation where you do feel empowered as a female, and you're going to go out there and potentially change the narrative for female sports and the attention that it brings, is your parents put you in sports at a young age. I would imagine probably almost the same age that they put any of your other siblings in. So when you talk about things like quality, they treated you relatively the same. They put you in sports the same. So there was this same emphasis, which I think is awesome. I'll see too often where you'll have boys and girls in the same household where sports won't be as much of an emphasis. And I think when you talk about equality and the inequalities that unfortunately happen, if there's not equal participation and an equal push, then it makes it really, really hard. Is there anything in terms of your relationship with your mom that you think has been unique or special that has allowed you to be in a situation, especially in a household with all boys, where it doesn't sound like there's any inferiority? You obviously view yourself on a level footing with the rest of your peers and probably with people outside of your family as well. Any thoughts there on anything that your mom did from whether or not it was reinforcing certain things or telling certain things to you, or maybe the fact that she didn't even bring it up at all?
I think just kind of like you said, she didn't really bring it up. My mom's a very confident person. She just kind of is like, I'm who I am. You're not going to change it. And I think that that's just helped me a lot because I haven't grown up with any question. Like I never questioned myself because I was never allowed to. And if I did, it was shut down immediately. And like you said, I've grown up in a household with mostly boys. So it's like I compete with boys, so I don't necessarily like we were all given the same equal opportunity. We were all put in sports at the same age. We were all allowed to play whatever sports we wanted to play, and I think that that's kind of made me the reason why I'm so confident on like not like on the whole like, oh, girls and like should see each other, but like my mom being confident has made me as a girl not question like my body type or like things like that. So I think my mom has a big part of that just because like she's super confident. She's not going to question herself. She's not going to go put stuff on her face that she doesn't need on. And I think that that's helped a lot.
That's good. I mean, that's awesome. I think that role models, you have your role model, may or may not be aware of it. You probably have people in your local community who view you as a role model. I think a lot of the reasons why they're going to continue to look you or seek you out as a role model is some of the way that you communicate about certain things, how you handle yourself, how you conduct yourself. Something that I've been able to see firsthand is how you've handled yourself through a setback with regards to being able to play. We don't have to get too much into the injury side of things, but there has been some things that have forced you to not be able to play basketball. And I know that you've worked on certain things as a result. So very, very consistent to what you've talked to me about earlier in this conversation, but reframing things or not focusing on what's happened to me, but really focusing on what I can do with this situation and what I'm in control of. We have a hip injury that we're going through right now. What are you doing to continue to invest in yourself and to ideally continue to allow yourself to be a better basketball player and even better person as a result of it?
Injuries are definitely tough when you go from playing a sport every single day of your life to like literally like not being able to walk on your own for a month. And I think that that's been hard, but I think not only on the basketball side of things, it's just like as a person, I've just tried to like make sure I don't get down on myself. I mean, in an injury and anything, there's going to be downtimes. Like you're going to get upset. You're going to be like, oh, I wish I was playing basketball, but then you're going to miss it. But I think that that's kind of like a positive thing. Like sometimes you need to take a couple, like a break from what you love and just love it more. And that's kind of how I see it is like this break for me yes, it makes me miss it a ton, but it just also makes me so much more eager to come back and come back ready. And I think also with the basketball side of things is like, I'm still allowed to like go dribble basketball. I mean, it's not like they tell me I can't touch a basketball. So I've been just like doing whatever I can. I'm not pushing it at all, but like if I want to go down and form shoot, I can still do that. So it's not like I'm completely taken from it, but I've also been watching film. Like I watch my game all the time because I feel like you're going to miss things in the game and you go back and watch it. And I've always been a strong believer that film is like the biggest way to grow your IQ, because you're not going to notice if you don't go watch it. Your coach can tell you so much, but if you don't see it for yourself, you're not going to actually believe it. So I think that's been good. I just started like the Jordan documentary, and I think that's just huge. Like Michael Jordan everyone knows who he is in our generation, but I don't think everyone knows the true stories of him. And I think that's big. Just like the way basketball used to be, like that's how basketball was known to be in the older generations. And now basketball has changed so much. Like the fouling side of things, like you can't get touched. It's not physical. And just like the players have changed. I'm not saying it's for a bad thing, but I think just Michael Jordan, just knowing his story will grow you as a basketball player. Like watching what he did, how he did things will just grow you into a better person, and just how hard he worked and like never stopped through literally anything. And the way he talked to his teammates, and it was just like a respect thing. Like they didn't take it personal. They were like, he's the best. I'm okay. Like he cussed at his teammates. He said him, like he told him to leave. And I think that's just big for our generation to know now, because sports teams take things too personal. And I think that's a negative thing. Like I've always been the kind of person where if we're on a basketball court, I don't necessarily mind what you say to me. Like I'm going to just know it's for the better. And I think it's kind of been taken away. A lot of kids take things personal, and they're like, oh, they don't like me. But that's not how it is. Like it's just in the grand scheme of things, they're trying to win a game. And I think that's big on watching like older basketball, going back and watching not only Michael Jordan, but I love Kobe. I kind of only watch those two, but just like learning from them and just how they grew up in basketball. And it's a lot different, just like grow your IQ and just the way that you see things.
Yeah. And I think two parts there. One, you're talking about like the psychology behind their success, right? How did Jordan operate? What did he think about? What type of things was he dealing with on interpersonal relationships? And then, to follow that up, you're talking about a situation where today, yes, I would say that young athletes have a harder time receiving feedback. Mm-hmm. And then there's a huge issue with parents allowing their kids to receive feedback. So I think the fact that you're recognizing that, at least knowing your mom on a more personal level, seeing that be something that is instilled in you, what can you say about your leadership ability and how it's evolved over going from being maybe a highly touted freshman that is not a senior in high school to eventually getting to a point where you're one of the older people on the team? And then how did that potentially prepare you for your experience with Team USA last summer?
Like my freshman year was definitely difficult. It wasn't difficult in like a playing form. Like I played obviously, but it was just one of those things where it was awkward. Like I didn't know what my role was. I knew that I had my role on court was, but like on the leadership side of things, it was just like there's seniors on the team that there was a little bit of times where I was just kind of like, I didn't know what to do. And I think I just kind of learned to lead by example and just be the first to the lines, be the first to practice, like just things like that. And like leading by example, if someone was confused, like just going over and pulling them aside and just saying like, hey, like this is what you're doing wrong, this is what you should do better. And just doing it in a way of by example and not necessarily by my voice. And then when I went to Team USA, it was a completely different role. Everyone there is the best on their basketball teams, and they all have to do the same thing that I do. So that was a really big help for me on the leadership side of things, because it just it made me learn to lead in a different way. It made me lead like vocally, like I had to be way more vocal, like just calling for the ball, like just constantly like cheering on your teammates. Like I think that's huge. Like if you cheer on your teammates, then they feel like you're behind them. They feel like you're supporting them. And that's a big confidence thing. So I think that was big, because our coach was super positive at USA and always enforced, like, you're going to cheer, you're going to clap, you're going to do all that stuff. And so when I came back to Middletown, I came back as a junior, so I was upperclassmen, and it just kind of like came naturally. I just didn't force it. Like you said, like you got to watch what you say nowadays to kids. Like you just kind of have to be careful. So I just always tried to take it in like, we always had a mentality of like, guys, don't take it personal. And if someone did, just come and talk to us. I was a captain on our team this year and last year. So I think that me just kind of having that like label also helped my leadership, because I didn't feel awkward. Like I had worked to be a captain. I was named captain, so I couldn't stop. Like I wanted to win. I wanted everyone to be the best. So I think just me in general, not taking things personal helped my leadership, because it just shows that yes, is it going to be hard, but like leading by example was a big thing that helped me. And then going to USA and like having to be more vocal helped me kind of put all the pieces together in this year. And I think it was helpful.
That's awesome. I'm excited to see really just what your career holds for you. I'm excited to see this next couple months, obviously finishing out on a high note at Middletown. I will be watching UConn basketball. I will be honest, I don't say this very often, but I've been very impressed throughout our conversation today. And I am very, very should say harder to impress. So you've been great today. I see a lot of parallels between things that I've been exposed to and people that I've seen that are older than you take years to figure out. And the fact that you've figured out some of the things at your age already is amazing to see. So other than that, yeah, I mean, it's awesome. It's a testament to you. It's a testament to your family, your parents. I think you're in a great spot to be successful, which I'm just, once again, I'm very excited to see what the future holds for you. Where can people connect with you? Where can they learn more about you?
My Instagram is saylor.poff, and I'm pretty active on there. If you have any questions, feel free to send them in there and I'll respond, or if you just want to follow me.
And she was also recently named Miss Maryland for basketball, so you can see that online. But other than that, Middletown Knights, she'll be finishing out senior year, hopefully with a state championship.
Finally.
Yes. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the High Performers Podcast. We want to encourage you to join the conversation, access the show notes, and catch our latest episodes on the website. Please head to highperformerspodcast.com. And if you enjoyed the podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, thanks again for listening.